All right, it is 9 o'clock practically Friday night, week 6. Games are already going on right now. We'll talk about some of them and some big games tomorrow. But before we get into all that, we'll talk about last week. It is the College Football Corner with Randy and Fletch. YouTube, give us a subscribe and give us a like. Hit the bell, likes on Facebook. And you know the drill. And if you want to be on the show, be in the show, give us a chat. We'll talk what you want to talk about if we feel it that is in relevancy. So, Randy, how are you doing? And what your thoughts on last week were?
Well, I'm doing good, and I had to up my heart medicine after watching the games last week. But I mean, some really great games last week. Of course, the one I'm going to talk about is
Oh yeah,
the Alabama Georgia game. The tale of two halves actually,
yeah,
and
no doubt.
I was I was really surprised that Alabama got off to the start that they did. I mean, that was fantastic, and and I think at halftime when Georgia scored there just before the half, and I don't know if you listened to the halftime show, but they had Nick Saban on there, and he was like, "Georgia's really too good a team not to get back in this thing."
Smart
And
guy.
it was yeah, and the adjustments that Kirby Smart made was pretty amazing, and Alabama didn't really do any adjustments. I don't know if they thought hey, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because it keeps working, not thinking that the other team's going to try to stop that sweep, running around the end, which they did.
Right.
Um, but what a game! It was a great game. I mean, a heck of a game to watch. What couple of things just really stood out to me that just drove me absolutely crazy. Um, first of all, and we see this, and talk about it about almost any college team that you watch. I cannot understand for the life of me. They have fourth and half yard. So they line up in the shotgun, 8 yards deep, hand it to their running back, 9 yards deep, to get 1 yard, and they're surprised when they get stuffed for short by 6 inches.
Yeah,
I,
no doubt.
I'm just like, the one announcer, I can't remember who it was. He's like, the NFL doesn't do that. Why do they do it in college?
Yeah,
And I never really thought about that. And then I actually seen highlights of NFL games, and I seen it happen twice. They did not go in the shotgun way back off the ball to get a yard. So anyway, that drove me crazy. And then the clock management of Alabama in the second half, why they stayed in a hurry up offense when you're up 21 points. I mean, they were snapping the ball with 30 seconds, 35 seconds left. So, I mean, they literally gave Georgia an extra 3.5 minutes. I mean, probably even more now, but 3.5 minutes for sure.
right.
That which would have worked against them, but it stayed in a hurry up, and that just kind of blew me away. But what a game! What a game that was! I was glad that Alabama came out on top. Um, that 17-year-old receiver, that Williams, man, he's something else. He made two stellar plays. That was just fantastic.
Yeah, the last week, a little bit prior to the game and then the game itself, obviously, was the first time I've heard him mentioned. Obviously, I live in the Big Ten territory, so I don't hear everything that happens in other places, just like, other than Travis Hunter, because everybody talks about him. But, apparently, the Williams and the guy for Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State are the top two wide receivers in the freshman class, and they sure are putting on a show,
Oh
each
yeah,
of them, the first 5 6 weeks of the season, first 5 weeks total. And so when I saw, from my perspective, Buckeyes are on at the same time. So I'm watching the Ohio State Michigan State game, but I'm keeping tabs on others, and I just see, I'm looking at numbers, and Alabama's just all over Georgia. So from my perspective in that arena, watching my game, just looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, Georgia's run of terror is pulled back. They had back to back. They didn't get a chance for a third one, and now they're coming back down to earth. Guys have graduated and moved on, and here we go with who's going to be big in the SEC. And of course, Alabama's just putting it on them. I'm thinking, wow, Caleb Bora's got it going on. He's doing good down there. He's obviously lost some, got some, and everything looks really good. And then when the second half started going on, and it all, whoa, I just lost Randy. Hopefully they'll come back. But anyways, when it all, yeah, he's back. Okay.
Kind of froze up there for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just saying that once the second half started, and I started seeing the score go the other way. I was like, okay, now this game's getting interesting. Buckeye game was pretty much over and done with, and the time wise, I was able to go over and watch. Basically, they kind of come out of a commercial break, kind of caught you up, and then they show how Carson Beck had started hitting some passes, and they were able to catch up. They got within a score, and then they got the score where they went up by one. I'm going, my gosh, what a colossal! I don't know if it was a collapse. I wouldn't call it that. It was just unreal. And at that point, I think they showed 500 yards of offense against 484 yards of offense. I feel like I'm watching a Big 12 game. This is back and forth,
Right.
And then was it one play, super huge bomb from the arm of Milroe to that dude who put on it looked like you're playing PlayStation, the way he stopped and those two guys bounced into each other and he went in the end zone.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, and then they literally, I'm like, that's still too much time, maybe. I don't know. Of course, they went all the way down and got pretty close and threw a pick. So, I think and that game was huge on the ratings, especially later on. It really jumped up in the ratings I read yesterday. So I think a lot of people kind of have that pinned as that could be the SEC championship game very easily. There's going to be a couple other teams that are going to have something to say about it. One of them may not be Ole Miss because of what happened last week. So what are your thoughts on the Ole Miss game?
Well, first let me go back to the Alabama-Georgia thing. As an Alabama fan, with the way that game went, and Carson Beck, he got off to a bad start. He got off a bad start. But one thing that we know about Carson Beck, if you can't put pressure on him, he will pick you apart. And Alabama did not really pressure him at all. Gave him all kinds of time. And as an Alabama fan, I do not want to see Georgia again. I just don't believe that Alabama's going to get off to that kind of start.
Right.
And I think Georgia is going to be exactly what we've seen in the second half. I'm sure it'll be a heck of a game, but I don't think you're going to see this big lead and a huge comeback. I think you're just going to see a, head-to-head battle. But I don't think Alabama wants to see Georgia again in the SEC championship or the playoffs or whatever. I think that could be that could change very much. Now, the Ole Miss Kentucky game, I'm watching that game. And honestly, things went Kentucky's way. I don't know if you've seen it. There at the end, the guy fumbles. It pops up in the air right in the guy's hands. It goes to 2 or 3 yards right into the end zone for the go-ahead score.
Right.
That was also a heck of a game, but things didn't go too well for them. It didn't go their way. Things definitely went Kentucky's way pretty much most of the game. And like I said, there at the end, they two huge breaks. One on that catch on fourth down, and then the fumble, and the guy takes it in the end zone. It's like, wow. One other thing I wanted to mention, which I'm not sure this will happen again. Hopefully not. But Georgia was 5 for 5 on fourth down.
Oh, were they really? I didn't realize that.
5 for 5 on fourth down.
Wow, that says a lot.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Yeah, that Kentucky and Ole Miss, nobody had that on their bingo card, if you will. Nobody saw that coming, other than Ole Miss and Kentucky fans, so to speak. Kentucky fans especially.
Right.
If they probably played that game a few more times, it may not be quite like that, and probably wouldn't be more Kentucky wins or not. But on that day, Ole Miss just didn't produce, and Kentucky got a lot of breaks. But they also played good football.
Oh, they did.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just one of those weird things. And Ole Miss isn't necessarily dead, from that standpoint. But being in the SEC is not going to be easy navigating through Alabama, Georgia, whose only loss is to Alabama, and then of course Tennessee is going to have a lot to say about that too, I think. And unless I'm missing somebody else, I know we talked about Ole Miss last week before they got the loss as far as who's going to have what to say. I think there's one more team maybe I'm thinking of, or I'm not thinking of, but maybe not. It'll come to me. But for sure,
there's LSU is there, Missouri is there, right now.
Missouri, yeah, Missouri is there, and LSU with the one loss to USC non-conference. So, as far as getting to the conference championship game, that doesn't matter except for tiebreakers. And I don't even, we'll have to have a special show on how these tiebreakers work because I still can't wrap my brain around it. But it's going to be interesting. Yeah, no doubt. So, those two games were definitely big games that we wanted to talk about. I think most people, myself certainly, a little surprised at how the Colorado beat UCF. I kind of thought UCF would win that game at home, and not only did they lose it, they didn't. It was kind of ugly for the most part. So and then so you start thinking about, okay, who's the best team in the Big 12? Utah took a bad loss. They don't have Cam Rising. They're probably not going to have him. This sounds like the same thing that happened last year. Oh, he's getting better. He's getting better. He never plays. And, most of the big teams that were good in the Big 12 left, OU and Texas. So you got Utah coming in. Arizona is the team that beat Utah. So they're kind of an outlier because they're from the Pac-12. So we'll see what they look like. But, TCU is down. Kansas has not turned into what people wanted them or thought they would. Kansas State's kind of hanging around and they're looking a little better.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, can Colorado, squeak through and win the Big 12? It's definitely possible now.
It is.
I got to look at the schedules and all that, but it's just hard to imagine after that massive beatdown by Nebraska. But they've looked much better since that game. And sometimes a bad loss like that really does help you get into focus. So maybe they're taking things a lot more seriously after that beatdown.
Well, I mean, they and we talked about it last show last week. I mean, they barely escaped Baylor.
Right.
I mean, Baylor just kind of shot themselves in the foot in that game, so they barely escaped there. But a good win for them. Going down to Central Florida and getting that game. With the way that the Big 12 is, I mean, they got as good as chances as anybody, in my opinion.
Yeah, because historically, I know Oklahoma State's another team that's just not looking good. I think they've got 2 losses in a row. I think so.
They have 2 losses.
So that just hurts them, and so we'll have to see and keep our eyes on that. I feel like Colorado might be this year's TCU from a couple years ago, where we're kind of like, this week, and they just somehow keep winning games we don't think they should win. Much different than TCU, but still, the outcome is the outcome. We see some of the games I had kind of, one game that is going to be really interesting. I had this kind of pegged early in the season. A lot of people thought this would be undefeated against undefeated. Nebraska took that loss to Illinois. That was a little surprising, and that was at Nebraska.
Yep.
And then Rutgers, 2 nice wins down at Virginia Tech, and then home against Washington, the Huskies. Right. So, I don't know what to think of this game, but Nebraska is not an easy place to play. That place sold out 400 straight games, regardless of how bad they were the last 8-9 years. And so that place will be rocking. It'll be crazy. And Rutgers has proven they can go on the road and play tough against Virginia Tech, which is supposed to be one of the better ACC teams. And they darn near beat Miami last week. And some people think they did beat them, and they got that crazy call in the end zone, which I don't know. Did you see the way that game ended? Virginia Tech and Miami?
I did.
We think that guy's foot was out of bounds. Was there enough to overturn that call? I don't think there was, but
when you actually seen the replay of it and stuff, it didn't look like that that they made the right call, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm looking for. But if it's called on the field there, and it's you gotta really pick and choose to really cut. That's not what that's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be overwhelming evidence to overturn a call on the field. And
right, exactly.
It definitely wasn't the case there.
Yeah, so it was interesting, to say the least. But irregardless, Tech played them really tough down in Miami, so that just says a lot about them, which says a lot about Rutgers. So I don't know. I really don't know who's going to win this game. But either one moving forward, Nebraska is going to go and play Ohio State in a few weeks. Rutgers doesn't get Ohio State or Michigan or Oregon. I mean, they got a nice Big Ten setup schedule for them. Now, how that all fills out the end of the year with tiebreakers and common opponents, crazy, anyways. But this should be a hard hitting, good game. Rutgers is not going to lay down; they never do. They'll punch you in the mouth. So Nebraska's going to have to bring the A game, and it should be good. That'll be a fun one to keep tabs on. Let's see.
Definitely keep an eye on that one. You know what? One other thing before we jump on this Ohio State thing.
Sure.
Was, last week one of the things that stood out to me that we didn't talk. Oklahoma and Oklahoma and
they played Auburn.
Auburn, yeah. Oklahoma and Auburn, and then there was another game. It was oh gosh, I had this in my head a while ago. Anyway, the stats are just ridiculous in favor of one team. They had 12 more first downs, they had 250 more yards of offense, but they lost the game. That was the case in the Oklahoma Auburn game, and the other one
was it Missouri?
No, I don't think it was.
Trying
Missouri.
to think.
Who the heck was it? But anyways,
certainly wasn't Florida State.
Oh, you know what it was? I think it was Notre Dame and who the heck did Notre Dame play?
They were at home against.
I'm pretty sure it was Notre Dame game.
Yeah. Oh wow, they were at home and they played. I think we highlighted it a little bit. Was it an ACC school?
We did. Who was it? It was. I'm going to tell you who it was. Louisville.
Oh, that's right.
Notre Dame and Louisville. That was the two games: the Oklahoma game and the Notre Dame game. Huge in favor of Louisville, huge in favor of Auburn, and of course, it's not played by stats. We know that, but I always go through and I'm looking at it. I'll go through and say, look at the score is. I kind of see what's happening. I'm like, 26 first downs to 11.
Yeah,
you got to be friggin' winning that game. Nope.
Nope.
So that was. That was one thing I just wanted to point out that sometimes we see that, and so definitely not played by the stats, but a couple of teams kind of dominated the game but lost. And
yeah, especially Auburn. That was crazy. One play ended up going back the other way, and that changed the whole dynamic for OU the rest of the way.
Pick six will kill you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched a decent amount of the Notre Dame, and I was rooting for Louisville. I don't know why, but it was just one of those weird games. You're like, they're playing good, but they just can't put it in the end zone. And,
exactly.
And then it's all like Notre Dame was getting nice plays that ended up getting in the end zone. So one of those. But you're right; those are two, and you see that a lot in college football, where you're up and down the field, but you don't punch it in. It comes back to bite you big time.
Right.
So we'll get this out of the way because it's a big game in the stand of. This is the toughest game Ohio State's played to date this season. They're at home. They got Iowa, who's going to be the best defense they probably have seen for sure. Maybe the rest of the year, defense wise, offense is just better, but still nowhere near where you want it to be from an Iowa standpoint. And the last couple times they've played Iowa, it's not been good at all. It's been big time killer. The point spread's 18 in this. Iowa did have that one shocker back in the JT Barrett days, but since then it's just been heavily favored in Ohio State's. I would look and like to see Ohio State, much like last week, tough in the first half as the teams are, Iowa's not going to be easily walked on in the first quarter, you wouldn't think. But as the game progresses, if their offense can't stay on the field, their defense is going to wear out, and I think Chip Kelly is going to – I've seen a lot of film study on what he's doing this year, and it's just hilarious how he's got the same formation, and he has a screen, a run, a pass, and an RPO out of every formation they have, so you never know what he's going to do based on formation and stuff. And
well, that's why he was one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. And
right,
I've said several times now, it's the best thing Ohio State did, best thing they could have done. It just makes a huge difference from them. But Iowa, like you said, maybe hang in the first quarter or something. But Ohio State's going to be too much. They're at home. They just kind of have things rolling right now, especially on offense, and taking that play calling away from Ryan Day and giving it to a guy like Chip Kelly. I mean, we're we're talking, a night and day difference. I mean, it's just huge for Ohio State to have that. So, I
I
really
agree.
don't. Ohio State's not going to have any problem in this game here.
Yeah, that in addition with him being a play caller, he's the offensive controller now. So he's
Right.
setting it up and he's implementing his own stuff, which is the best way. I mean, no offense to Ryan Day, as good as he ever has been, he's been very good in the years past since he's been to Ohio State doing that.
Well,
But he's got other things he's got going on, and Chip Kelly is exactly Chip Kelly. He's Ryan Day was his understudy as amongst others. So. And you can see in the difference this year in the things they're doing. The running game is a lot better this year than it has been in years past. Usually are struggling, and they got a three-headed monster if you count the quarterback who can pull it down and run it too, as well as obviously Keyshawn Junkins and Trevion Henderson. So other barring shooting yourselves in the foot and fluke plays, I definitely agree. I think Ohio State will roll in this, and moving on to next week, which we'll talk about next week for sure. Out to Oregon, which looks like it might be the game everybody thought it was going to be earlier in the season. Oregon was doing great things, and people were starting to wonder, but I think they found who they are, and it should be a nice game next week. But this one is this week. Right. So what do we got over here? Let's go ahead and talk about Alabama and Vanderbilt. Two things here. Vanderbilt probably playing the best they've played in a couple of years, if not 5 or 6, 7 years, as far as football goes. And I don't think Alabama, if this was in the last 15 years, you would never think to yourself, Alabama's going to have a letdown, because Nick Saban didn't have letdowns,
Right.
This is coming off a big game. You would, I'm going to say there's no way they're going to have a letdown, but you never know. But that would be the only thing I think that could hurt them, is if they came out and figured they show up and put on the helmet, win the game. I just don't see them doing that. So therefore, I think this is going to be, one where you just jump all over them and then get the backups in there in the second half against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vandy. I mean, they have played better. I mean, they do have 2 losses, but always, one of the big things in college football, that plays a big part of it is, when you're at home in college football, like you said, the sellouts. Most of the college football games are sellouts.
Right.
Especially, if it's any kind of big game at all, it's going to be, home field advantage certainly plays a big part in college football. Hopefully, and should. Alabama should be a bit too much for Vandy, whether it happens in the beginning or, it goes to halftime or whatever. But, you would think that Alabama would be able to take care of business here.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Like I said, it's almost like if Ohio State beats themselves, if Alabama beats themselves, that's pretty much the only way it's going to happen if they don't win, or something like that, or they just play bad just because they're doing things to beat themselves. But yeah, I just don't see it happening. But weirder things have happened to weirder teams, so you never know. So
whenever we see that happen, you always look at an Alabama or Ohio State or whoever it may be, one of the top teams in the country, whoever you're looking at, much like Georgia last week, falling into that big thing. Look at the turnovers. You turn it over 4 times, and good things are going to happen. So
right,
that's one thing that certainly could come into play for Ohio State and Alabama, and any other the mismatches that we think that we may have.
Right. And anybody who watches this show knows that the 2 teams we always hope that kind of happens to is Michigan and LSU. So, if teams are going to self-implode, let it be one of them, Have this on here just for almost the same reason. Ole Miss, bad loss last week to Kentucky. Not that it's a horrible team, but that's a game nobody saw them losing. Now they got to go on the road to South Carolina, which is not an easy team to play. It's tough. They're going to punch in the mouth. They're an SEC school. It's a conference game. Ole Miss has got to wipe that game off their brow. I'm guessing, that they're going to come out drooling for blood and get all over the Gamecocks. But you really never know. So that's a game that's going to be, especially if you see this game close, pay attention to it, because Ole Miss don't want to lose the second game, and that could happen.
Yeah, well, South Carolina seems to really play well against the big boys, so to speak. In the big games, they seem to play pretty well in those games, very competitive. So, And once again, at home. And so I would be surprised if this game is fairly close.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We talked about Missouri. They're going to A&M. A&M ever since Notre Dame has looked a lot better, and I don't think they've lost a game since, if I'm not mistaken. So they're at home, and they always talk about Kyle Field as one of the toughest places to go in and try to win.
It is.
Crazy fans, and I know Missouri has won, but they haven't won in the way they have won last year with the great passing, and that quarterback and the receivers are saying some of the best receivers in the nation and stuff. So, A&M, with the guy that came from Duke, who's a former coordinator at A&M, the tough game. I mean, this year is nuts. I mean, and this is not anything really new. A&M and Mizzou, with the exception of there's no divisions anymore, so everything means differently. But look at how many games we're talking about, week 4, 5, and 6, man. These things are huge matchups with big implications, and this is no exception.
Oh, yeah. This, one thing about Missouri, over the years has been, there seems to be no middle ground for them. They seem to be really good or pretty good and very competitive, or the opposite of that, not very competitive and not very good. So, I mean, certainly this year, it looks like that they're going to be competitive. It looks like a pretty good ball team. And you're right. A&M has made has rebounded nicely since that Notre Dame game, and they're playing well. But and we've talked several times about places that you got to go play. Texas A&M's one of them. LSU, Penn State. We've talked about it before. Those are just really tough places to go into. The atmosphere is just unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The Notre Dame loss is on one hand, it doesn't look great for A&M because Notre Dame turned around and lost to NIU, and NIU is lost, so it just makes it look worse that they lost to them. But if they take care of business in the SEC, that game ain't going to really matter for them. But it really matters for Notre Dame because they would like A&M to win out. So, hey, look who we beat, even though look who we lost to, which is NIU, and they don't have a conference. So it's going to be tough for them if they get another loss, which they got a tough – they end the season at USC. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes up with the Irish, But this game right here means a lot for both of these two teams and other teams as well. And then who would have thought we were talking about an undefeated Indiana team in week 6? But here we are.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're playing at it's not Ryan Field anymore. They demolished that. They're playing at their practice field. They built some stands around it while they build a new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Northwest is usually a tough out, historically for IU especially. But this isn't your daddy's IU team anymore. This is the guy from James Madison who had a great run at James Madison, and he's got a whole lot of transfers, and he's built a nice team there. They're undefeated, and they put 77 or something out on UCLA a few weeks ago. I mean, it was nuts. I've never heard of IU putting 77 on. I thought it was a basketball score. I was like, is it basketball season? So, I really think that look for IU to win this game. I don't know a whole lot about Northwestern. Other than the last couple of years since Fitzgerald, they've just been scrapping to win. What you looking at?
I'm looking at Michigan State and Oregon.
Ooh.
Oregon on the 1 yard line on third down through an interception.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Did they take it to the house or just?
No, it didn't go to the house. It was. I was like, holy cow! You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that is one of the games tonight, Oregon and Michigan State, Oregon. And really, I was thinking, I don't know if Michigan State going on the road can play tough. But sometimes when you're on the road, you got nothing to lose. You just get out there and let it go. And this is a night game, so it doesn't kill them. It's not like getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning and playing because they're going east to west coast.
We just got done talking about the turnover thing. Here Oregon marches right down to the 1 yard line and throws a pick. So this could be one of those games. Who knows?
And again, you're on the 1 yard line. You need 1 yard to get in. Why aren't you just beefing it up? And every team in college should pick a lineman and teach them how to do refrigerator Perry. Hand the ball off to them and fall your fat butt in the end zone for a yard and get a touchdown.
Well, one of the things, the Bush push and all that kind of thing. We've seen that for a long time. The quarterback get up under center, or the wildcat guy get up under center, and the two guys get right behind him and basically
Right.
shove him forward. Heck, I mean, that's always good for a couple of yards. And heck, I've
Yeah.
seen him push him forward for 7 or 8 yards.
Yeah.
So
Whatever happened to the days of Herschel Walker where they jumped over the pile about 3.5 feet in the air? And you don't see those guys anymore. It's just different.
That's not. I mean, you used to see some of that, so they really got to get up. I mean, I think that they found out that, I never did think that was a great play. Because you go all the way back. I'm going way back. To the championship game with Penn State and Alabama. Yeah, Penn State tried that on 4th down, and they got met in midair by Barry Krause, who ended up playing in the NFL for the Minnesota Vikings, and didn't work. And
you got to have the dudes do it, and you got to make sure that there's no dudes on the other side. There's no doubt, but for every Jerry Krause, there's 40 teams that ain't got a Jerry Krause. But I know what you're saying, but it's still, however you do it, just 1 yard, hand it off. You don't need 8 yards in let alone throwing the ball with the 1 yard on the 1 yard line. That's crazy.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the Patriots and the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. You remember that?
Butler, yeah, the Butler.
That was on first down, man.
Yeah,
but anyways, I mean,
I literally remember saying, okay, they're going to hand it to the beast mode, and this game is over. Beast mode's in the backfield. This game's over. And
you give it to him 3 times.
Yeah, why?
3 times get 1 yard.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
But anyways,
I just couldn't believe it.
It's just I don't know what people are. I don't know what they're thinking sometimes. But anyways, we just got done talking about how that can play out, and sure enough, I'm sitting here looking at it, and bam, right in front of my face. So
that's funny. There are a few other games I didn't put on for the graphics that, this is supposed to be Florida State Clemson weekend, which it is, but Florida State. I mean, does anybody think they're going to beat Clemson? I don't know if outside of Tallahassee, and I really don't think anybody thinks that. I don't think that. So if somehow Florida State pulls that win out, it's just really bad for Clemson and really good for Miami, because that just solidifies Miami as the leader in the clubhouse for the ACC.
Absolutely.
So, and if Clemson wins, they're supposed to win. So, and then Tennessee's at Arkansas. That's a tough game, but Arkansas really isn't doing what people thought they were going to do this year. And the rumor is that what's his face is back there again. Petrino is their offensive coordinator.
Right. Yep.
So when they fire, Sam Tillman or whatever his name is, then here comes Petrino for a third time. So, let's see. USC is traveling to Minnesota. Minnesota should have beat Michigan last week, and they did. I don't know if they got anything left for USC this week. So
yeah, that was another one of those games that.
That was a hard fought game, and a little. Onside kick, and the guy, what was he? A fingernail offside, maybe, and they call that onside kick back. I mean, that was tough.
Yes, that was.
and they got the onside kick. I mean, how often do you ever get those? And they got it, and then they. I'm not saying they fixed it. I'm just saying, man, you just let that guy.
I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
But
Connor Stallions was the ref.
Sometimes you wonder about this stuff, man. It's like, how in the world does just some of the calls, targeting calls, pass interference calls. Sometimes you're thinking, there is no possible way that somebody could miss that or make that call or make a late call or something. And sometimes you're just going, I don't know.
Something just. I'll tell you something weird happened last week in Ohio State and Michigan State. They were coming to the end of the third quarter, I think, and I'm watching the play clock. It's like 2-1. It was all zeros, and then the ball snapped. And you see that a lot, and they don't call anything because you think, okay, whatever I'm looking at, it's not the real clock, and so it's a little bit off, and Right. So they ran a play, didn't get any yards, and it was going to end up being a 4th down, I think. And then they end of the quarter, and they went to commercial, come back at 4th quarter, and they're saying the clock ran out, so they shouldn't have got that play. So now it's still 3rd down again. They got another 3rd down because it went back 5 yards, and then they got a 1st down on that 3rd down play. So they didn't get it when they allowed them to have that play. And I'm a Buckeye fan. I thought that was kind of weird. They played the play. They should have just let it ride, but they gave them the play back. They wouldn't have changed the game or anything. Maybe yardage and stats, whatever. But that was another weird one,
Yeah.
just correcting something you really don't need to correct,
Yeah. I was actually I drove the Fairborn to a football game. When was this? Was it Wednesday night? And at Tip City. And it ended up being a 16-14 game. But one of the things that happened in the fourth quarter with just a couple minutes to go, and it favored Fairborn, and people were going nuts. So it was second down. They ran a play. The guy fumbled, they scrambled for it. They recovered it. They lined back up, and it's still second down.
Wow.
And people go, it's third down. It's third. I mean, they were going crazy. Well, they wouldn't let them. They went ahead and ran a play, so they actually got an extra down, and they got the first down and was able to run out the clock. But people were losing it. We were standing there, and I said, it's third down, isn't it? Oh, yeah, it's third down. And the people next to third, they're trying to scream out on the field. And I was like nobody listened to them. I was like,
wow.
Definitely third down. Nope, second down. They blew that one, man.
Wow. And unfortunately, that happens more often than not at a local level like that because it's chaos, and high school.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We're talking. High school
and maybe not high school in Texas where it's like a.
And plus, I think I don't know if freshman or whatever. Well, I mean, it wasn't a varsity game, so
Oh, okay.
Who knows who's out there friggin' even refereeing that game? Yeah. Hey, anybody got a striped shirt to put on? Come on out.
Yeah, really. And to think about 5 years ago, I was thinking, I think I'll be a referee. And then the more I thought about it, I thought the last thing I want to do is have somebody following in my car, after a call or something like, the heck with that,
Just before I started coaching in high school, I coached baseball in high school for several years. I got into umpiring a little bit, and I can tell you right now that's something you do not want to get into.
Yeah, no doubt.
That is
especially baseball. Boy, I've probably honestly the worst I've seen at a kid level, and I mean young kids.
Oh yeah,
is baseball. I mean, from the parents just going nuts on these, blue, ump. I'm thinking, dude, come on. Even the kid's not mad. Only the parent is. Escorting them out. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, that's a thankless job, is what I was getting at. But.
No doubt. Yeah, speaking of baseball, I'm going to give a little shout out to the Detroit Tigers making it into the LCS or LDS. I'm sorry, and nice sweep 2 games of the Astros. This is a Sparky Anderson. I like the Tigers because when we moved to the team, the state up north, Sparky was there, so I started rooting for them because of my Reds tie. And I've always liked them and the Reds, hoping they would make it to the series together sometime, which they haven't. But it's nice to see the Tigers there. They got a $18 million payroll, and the one pitcher for Houston has $18 million himself.
Oh, well, yeah. Who was that? Verlander? Is that who?
Oh, the other guy, yeah.
Scherzer or whatever. Anyways, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then, speaking, while you're on the baseball thing, the Reds had a really nice hire, I think.
Yeah, Terry Francona.
Well, he's World Series with the Indians, World Series with Boston. So
a little bit of trivia, not really trivia, but it could be a trivia answer if you ever hear it. Terry Francona played for the Reds in '87.
Really?
Yeah, he was on.
What? I remember that. Now that you said that, I remember that.
Yep.
So in the college football corner, you're liable to hear anything. So,
I didn't know it until I read it today, and I'm thinking, wow, that's when Pete Rose was manager in '87, and Francona was, I think it said he was an outfielder. I think it was a right fielder, if I'm not mistaken. He was an outfielder. I'd love to see him turn that team around. I mean, I think they were headed a real good last year, and then they kind of fell off a little bit this year. They were close to the same record, but they got a lot of talent on that team. Starting with L.A. De La Cruz, and it goes, or a couple of nice pitchers, some guys, nice young players. They could do some things. So hopefully he's just a man to get it done. That'd be great. We haven't seen something like that in Cincinnati in a while, from baseball, that is, obviously.
Right.
And I'd love it. I think we're close to the same age. And when I grew up, it was the Big Red Machine. And there was nothing like it, man. Bench, you see the lineup of the Big Red Machine, and all the names in the back of the jerseys. And I recognize every one of them from being a kid,
Oh, Oh
You
yeah.
know, Conception,
Well,
Foster, Griffey. I mean, it's nuts. You know.
then we, of course, this week we had the passing of Pete Rose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who bigger on the big red machine than Pete Rose? The all time hit king. So I mean, that was sad to hear that.
Oh, absolutely. We were talking. My boss is a big baseball fan, but loves sports in general. But he's a big baseball guy, and he was talking about probably 10 to 15 years older than I am. And he was talking about the '68 season, which was the season of the pitcher. Al Kaline, 30-game winner. Bob Gibson, multiple shutouts, whatever. It was the Tigers and the Cardinals in the series. Tigers won it. The league average, I think, was like 250 something. It was really horrible for hitting that year. Yaz Yastrzemski from the Red Sox and American League led an average at 301. I mean, and so the average leader in the National League at 338, I think, Pete Rose. He was the only guy that was killing it, where everybody else was hitting in the upper 200s. He was hitting, I think I had almost six. I got on was almost. I watched Johnny Bench. I think he said he got on base over almost 6,000 times in his career, something like that.
Yeah,
it was
pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, and Charlie made a mistake. You see those old videos of him bearing down, diving in the third head first. I don't think I've ever seen anybody dive like that. And if I'm on third base, I'm getting out of the way. That dude's coming in, and he'll take you out. I mean, but it's just that it was a shame that his off the field was what it was, because his game on the field was second to none. He was incredible, and he was a West Side Cincinnati kid. Grew up in the West Side of Cincinnati. Wanted to play baseball. I mean, he's a hometown boy. Played for the Reds. Unfortunately, he did go for a couple other teams. Later, and then came back and managed, but player manager, but. Dude was a stud, but couldn't get out of his own way.
Yeah, this is it's a college football show, but we're both from Ohio, so we had to talk about Pete Rose for a minute.
Oh, absolutely, and I mean, everywhere I've ever lived, Pete Rose conversation comes up, and they all say the same thing. Do you think he should get in? Do you think he should? I honestly think I understand why he's not in, with all the things that have gone on between him and the guys that are now deceased. The old Giamattis and all that. But I think he should be in for what he did in the field, and everything else should be everything else. Because there is guys that have done, just as much, if not somewhat worse, way before him and all that are already in before you finally, So I get it. But I'd like to see him put him in now that he's passed away, and it's not an issue. Because wanting to be back in baseball all this time, up until maybe the last 15 years, because he's so old, put him back in, and he didn't just want back in the Hall of Fame. He wanted in the game, and I was against that. I'm like, get him in the Hall of Fame, but don't let him in the game. He doesn't need to be in the game. But
I guess they would have to put Shoeless Joe Jackson in first.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So, and I don't think he's getting in. I think I was watching Bench talking to Dan Patrick, and Patrick asked him, "Do you think they'll put it in posthumously?" And who's the Manfred? Is that the commissioner of baseball now? Is that his name?
Yeah,
Manfred. He just said Manfred's already answered that question, and it's emphatically no. So it ain't gonna happen.
I don't think Johnny Bench is the guy that's big in favor of Pete Rose getting in. To be honest with you.
Yeah. He talked about their relationship, but he considered him a friend, and they used to be in business together and all this stuff, but they had their differences and all that. But at the end of the day, they would shake hands. But I think he understands why, and that's just the way it is. And I don't think, I know he's not out there lobbying for him to get in, that's for sure.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, so it is what it is, and just we'll remember him for how he played on the field. And it's not that big of a deal. I've never been to Cooperstown. I probably never will go. It's not because I don't want to go. It's just Canton's closer. I've been there, a dozen times, and I used to have tickets to those games. And I don't know, just was not something that's high on my list. No big deal. I mean, I loved baseball growing up. I played baseball when I was a kid. My first game ever was a no-hitter when I was in fourth grade, and I got the newspaper clipping to prove it. But
cool.
Yeah, I didn't even know what a no-hitter was, but much years later, I was like, hey, I pitched a no-hitter. I'm going to get that article.
I did that.
Cut that out and post it.
That's me.
Yeah, I did some of my life. I feel like Steve Martin in The Jerk. Hey, I'm somebody.
I'm somebody now.
Yeah, I'm in the phone book. So So, hats off to Pete Rose. Oh, I'll keep my hat
Yeah.
on though. But
Right. Yeah.
great baseball player without a
Oh,
doubt.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so the Tigers are playing the Guardians, and the Royals are playing the Yankees. So that'll be fun. I think it's going to come down to. I think the Padres are just going to destroy everybody. They're looking really good, but never know. Never know. So, all righty. Well, any more games you want to talk about? Have we get them all covered in pretty much, or
Yeah, I was kind of looking to see if there was something else that kind of stood out to me.
Oregon's up 6-0. Syracuse is up 14-0 on UNLV. So, and yeah, UNLV. That's that guy who quit on his team, so to speak, because of the NIL, and they went out and just demolished the team last week, which didn't help his cause at all. But now they're getting beat, but they're playing Syracuse. So,
Yeah, Houston beating TCU pretty good.
oh, is that game on too?
Yeah, Houston.
Oh, okay.
TCU,
It already started.
Well, they're
Yeah,
actually in the third period with 5:31 to go. It's 24-6 Houston.
I wonder why I don't have the score on that up top. Oh well, that's a good for them because it seems like this year everybody's pounding Houston, so they're beating somebody. That's just good for them and doesn't say a whole lot about TCU.
Right. Right.
Well, yeah, I was looking up the schedule. I think as far as game times, A&M Missouri at noon with a few others, and then afternoon games are going to be Ohio State and Iowa. And, of course, Georgia and Auburn. I thought about talking about that, but I don't really think Auburn, doesn't stand much of a chance against Georgia in Athens. But you never know, man. These games are crazy. That's why they play them. Well, like we say every week, one of these games is going to surprise us, and we're going to talk about it. So
Well, sure.
hopefully it's not the teams we root
Every
for.
week something crazy happens.
I'll go out on a limb and say Florida State's going to make it a game, and that'll just shock everybody because you just think Clemson, because they lost last week to SMU, and it wasn't close. Florida State is having issues, man.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I feel like we can almost quit talking about them. They just what a friggin' train wreck that is going in. But yeah. I mean, it's kind of tell us a little bit more about Clemson. I mean, they got throttled by Georgia, and they seem to bounce back, and
Oh yeah,
seem to be rolling now. So see if they can continue that or not. So that'd be the biggest thing in that game, in my opinion.
and I thought I want to look at their schedule real quick. I thought somebody said they don't play Miami, but they would if they meet in the championship game. But on the regular season, it's slowly coming up here. Clemson, they got Florida State, then Wake Forest, Virginia, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Citadel, and South Carolina. They don't play Miami. So those two teams could be, they're both, Clemson got one loss, but in the conference, they're undefeated. They could be both undefeated going into that final game.
Yeah, it could be. And Miami travels all the way to California to play them.
And that's interesting. That's tomorrow, right? Yeah, and
Right.
that's a long way to go. You would think they should beat them. Cal has looked nice at times, but you wouldn't think they'd have anything for them. But man, you just never know. I mean,
Never know. Yep.
That's that team. I think Miami goes very well when Cam Ward is playing awesome. He's had 300 plus yards, I think, in every game they've played this, even though they played some puffs earlier, but who didn't? So if he's not having a great game, that will affect them. It's not the kind of team where he can just start relying on others. He's got to be the man. So if he, jet lag, flying all that way, doesn't get good sleep, eat something wrong for breakfast, you just never know. And then all of a sudden, here comes Cal. So that could be a sleeper game.
He was actually they kind of remind me of Florida State last year. They had the quarterback. They are just rolling. All of a sudden, the quarterback goes down, and they just.
Right.
It certainly is a team sport, but I mean, one guy certainly makes a difference. So, that seems to be the case with them. I kind of see him being like a Florida State was last year, rolling along. Hopefully, he continues to play well, doesn't get injured.
But he's kind of the Heisman front runner. Even though it's way too early to really have a jump on that. It's a numbers thing, and of course, your numbers look great in September, anyways, because you're playing a lot of teams you're supposed to put up numbers against. So, you look good in September, but October and November are really going to tell the tale for that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that team, I agree with. Jordan Travis, as good as he was, it was a problem when he went down. Even though they had a really good defense, they barely won the championship game, the ACC, and of course they didn't look good enough to get into the CFP. That's the way it went. So with Miami, yeah, Cam Ward's got to be the man. I agree with you on that one. So 100%. So interesting. I thought Stanford was in a pretty interesting game. Is somebody traveling to Stanford? Is that right? Let me get back to the schedule here real quick.
Stanford. One of the ones that cut was SMU at Louisville. Could be an interesting game.
Yeah. They come off big win against Florida State, and Louisville disappointing loss to Notre Dame.
Virginia Tech goes to Stanford.
I was gonna say, was it Tech? I was okay. So yeah, wow. I mean, it's an ACC game. It's not necessarily gonna have much to do with the outcome of the conference, but nice looking. All these teams that are flying coast to coast now are new things this year. So, and it's happening a lot every week practically. So, Washington came out last week to Rutgers and got beat. Now teams are going out west. So looking to return the favor. Stanford's at home against the East Coast team. I want to say there's of course Cal is against who was it? Florida State. Yeah, then that's at Cal, right? So yeah. USC's got to come out to Minnesota. Didn't fare well for them when they came out to Michigan. Michigan's going to Washington. That's right. Repeated the national championship game with the coaches and everybody else are gone. So it's just the helmet. The helmet's the only thing that are the same.
Yeah, the next 2 weeks gets pretty interesting in college football. So,
and I said it wrong. Miami goes to Cal, not Florida State.
Yes.
Yeah, that's coast to coast stuff is going to get really interesting. There's no doubt. UCF and Florida. Yeah, Florida. There's a dumpster fire there. That coach has got. If he makes it to Thanksgiving, I'll be shocked. So, but yeah, good games tomorrow. We talked about them, and again, we'll be waiting to find out which ones we didn't see coming because there'll be at least one. There always is.
Always.
So, all right, you ready to end it up?
Yep, let's wrap it up, man. It's been a good show, and you tell everybody what they need to do.
Oh yeah, we need you to go on YouTube, hit the bell, subscribe, so you can keep up with this. I think I kind of like Friday nights, a little more relaxing on Fridays, not have to worry about homework and stuff. So look for us on Fridays. I think the Thanksgiving week will be Wednesday night because that's kind of like a Friday that week. And unless one of us going out of town, which I doubt. So, and then on Facebook, give us a like, thumbs up, and maybe Randy and I in the next couple of weeks we'll hit that burger joint. We'll have a report on what's called the Feast.
The Butter Beast from Butter Bees in Xenia, Ohio. We'll give them a little shot here right on the air here.
Yeah, let's do it. We're gonna make that happen for sure. So, and we'll report back to you next week. So look for us right here Friday night next week, 8, 9 o'clock somewhere in that. Just stay by the phone and watch it turn on, and let us know what you think and give us what you think is going to happen. We're interested for sure. So, until next week, we will see you guys later.